Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, it's July 15th, 2018. I'm up in the second food forest area near Pond 1. Pond 2's down that way to my right, to your left. Couple of weeks ago, maybe it's 3 weeks ago now, I can't recall, I posted a video planting the heirloom blue tomatoes up here in this area here. These were beds, and there's one over there that you can, there's one over there that you can see. That's a tarped old garlic bed. One over there you could see that's a tarped old garlic bed. And right here is the, this is not easy, is the area that we planted blue potatoes and some of the pumpkin squash here as well, some of the heirloom pumpkin squash. So we did that 2 to 3 weeks ago. I did use the rototiller at that time, which I usually don't do too much of. There was a lot of weeds growing up in here, and I made a furrow, planted the blue potatoes, and came back later and planted the pumpkins, the squash. And over the last couple of weeks, the blue potatoes have done really well, and I left a little hill next to where the blue potatoes were dug in and planted. So I'll put a link up there in the upper right hand corner to that video planting the blue potatoes. And today what I did was I came up and did a couple of things. So some weeds had started coming up in those areas. There weren't any weed mats down at that time that I put down a couple weeks ago. And so I came up with the tilther, the little battery electric drill powered tiller, and I went over both sides of the blue potato plants in order to disrupt the roots of the weeds, and also loosen up the soil, because I wanted to rake it up and create more of a hilling effect on the blue potatoes. And that worked out really well. Now, some of the blue potatoes in the first part of the bed, they end up getting completely buried because the deer had come through and chopped those right down. I suppose it was a deer, I'm not positive up here. And so I did that a couple of times so I could really hill up the potatoes as well as possible, and that worked out great. And because of another experiment I did, I stumbled upon a year or 2 years ago. I ended up mixing some of the compost, which is the big compost piles right back there, with some of the wood chips, which are in between these beds here. And that material broke down, and it seemed to work really well with the in the food forest, in the perennial beds, because I took that and transplanted over in that area, and the fruit trees and all did extremely well with that. So, and my theory is that the combination of the compost with the wood chips, now this was already completed its full cycle, the compost had, and it just got mixed in with the wood chips. And again, behind me we're right up against the forest edge, so that ended up working out pretty well. So what I decided to do was bring the rotary tiller up again, and along the edges of the compost on either side of the potatoes and squash, the pumpkins here, are the wood chips. And I decided to take the rototiller and have the tiller go over maybe a quarter of the area where the compost is, but mostly into the area of the wood chips, and till that up and try and get a superficial coating of those wood chips with the compost. So see if that aids in the decomposition of those wood chips faster, and see if it makes a difference as far as can that material be used for more perennial plants in the future as well. It's an experiment. We'll see how things work. I haven't been an advocate at all for the rototiller, especially on this property. If you take the rototiller, I just snap the tines or the bolts that hold the tines to the plates that the tines hook to on the rototiller. Our ground is just too rough for the rototiller, and I'm not poo-pooing BCS's rototiller. I think it's a great rototiller, Just at first, I'm not a fan of using rototiller in the gardens, and certainly it's worthless trying to rototill this property. You just beat the heck out of yourself and beat the heck out of your equipment. But after building up wood chips and compost and all, that may be a way of mixing that material more thoroughly in preparation for food forest planting as well. So that's my theory. So I thought I'd try this and see if that does ultimately work. There was very little weeds for me to deal with the Two Bad Cats weeder. I did end up using that at the very end as well. So again, if you have comments or questions, please leave them below. I really appreciate your thoughts about this whole project, the way I'm doing it. Constructive criticism is always welcome. And if you like this sort of video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, hit that bell icon if you want to be notified when we post another video. And certainly have a super fantastic day. Bye-bye now.